So, what if the single biggest thing holding you back isn't your talent or your connections or even your luck? What if it's just the size of your thoughts? That is the powerful, game changing idea we're diving into today, straight from David Schwartz's timeless book, The Magic of Thinking Big. Let's get into it. Okay, let's kick things off with a question we've all heard in a job interview, right? But I want you to be really honest with yourself for a second. When someone asks you, what's your greatest weakness? What's the real gut level answer that pops into your head? Most of us give those cliche answers like, oh, I'm a perfectionist, or I just care too much. But Schwartz argues that for most people, the true answer is something way deeper. It's self-deprecation. It's this habit of constantly, almost automatically, selling ourselves short. And this isn't just some quirky personality trait. He says it's the root cause of a very common, but thankfully curable, failure disease. And yep, this disease has a name. Schwartz calls it something you'll never forget: excusitis. It's that chronic habit of finding reasons, excuses, for why we aren't where we really want to be in life. So let's run a quick diagnosis. So, what is excusitis? Well, it's the failure disease. It's basically an addiction to rationalizing mediocrity. And Schwartz noticed something fascinating. The more successful a person is, the less you hear them making excuses. And here's the best part, the real kicker. This is not a life sentence. It is 100% curable. And the symptoms, I bet these sound pretty familiar, right? Blaming our health, convincing ourselves we just don't have the brains for it, thinking we're either too old to start or too young to be taken seriously, or the classic just writing it all off as bad luck. According to Schwartz, these aren't real reasons. Nope. They are carefully built mental roadblocks that we put up ourselves to keep from even trying. So, if excusitis is the disease, then what in the world is the cure? Well, it all starts with one core principle: the absolute foundation of thinking big. Genuine, deep down, unshakable belief. This right here perfectly captures how it works. Your mind is like this incredibly powerful search engine. If you type in the search query reasons this will fail, boom, it's going to give you 1,000 results, every obstacle, every doubt. But if you type in, how can I make this succeed? That same powerful engine shifts gears and starts finding solutions, pathways, and resources you never even knew existed. It all comes down to the search query you give it. And this is the crucial point. Think of your belief system like a thermostat. It literally sets the ceiling for what you can achieve. If you set your internal thermostat to 72 degrees of success, that's as high as you're going to go. But if you have the courage to crank it up to 90, you create the conditions for a much higher level of success. You are the one who controls the dial. Okay, so we've got belief as our foundation. Now we can start the actual treatment plan. And step one is all about tackling the biggest monster that belief has to face: fear. Belief gives you the power, sure, but this next part is what actually unleashes it. This might just be the most powerful, practical idea in the entire book. See, fear is like a fungus. It grows best in the dark, damp corners of your mind, spaces created by inaction and hesitation. The longer you wait, the bigger and scarier the monster gets. But action? Action is like flipping on a 1,000-watt spotlight. The moment you take one small step, the fear just starts to shrink. Action is the ultimate antidote. And that fear, it has a real-world effect. It keeps almost everyone competing in the crowded minor leagues of life. Schwartz tells this amazing story about a personnel executive who said he received 50 times more applicants for the low-paying jobs than for the high-paying executive roles. And here's what that looks like visually. It's completely backward from what you'd expect. Everybody assumes the competition is just brutal at the top. But the reality? It's the opposite. What Schwartz calls second-class street is packed shoulder to shoulder with people fighting for average. Meanwhile, first-class avenue is surprisingly wide open because fear convinces most people to not even try to make the turn. So how do you actually do this? The process is beautifully simple. Step 1, isolate your fear. Drag that vague, shadowy monster out into the light and define it. What exactly are you afraid of? Get specific. Step 2, take action. Do one thing, anything, that moves you toward that fear instead of away from it. That's it. That's the cure. All right, the second part of our treatment plan is all about upgrading the software that runs our minds. I'm talking about the very language we use to see and create a reality. This is such a game-changing insight. We don't really think in abstract words. We think in images, in little mental movies. And the words you choose, both in your head and out loud, they're the director of that movie. They are literally painting the pictures that define your world and the world of everyone listening to you. I mean, just look at the difference one word makes. When you call something a problem, the mental picture is a brick wall. But when you call it a challenge, suddenly the picture is an exciting puzzle to solve. An expense feels like a loss. An investment feels like planting a seed for future growth. Every single word you choose determines which movie you're living in. So the takeaway here is to become a specialist in creating positive mental images. Use your words to paint a picture of what's possible, not what's wrong. In every conversation, you have a choice. Are you digging a grave for an idea, or are you building a castle for a future vision? Always, always choose to build the castle. And finally, let's talk about the long-term prognosis. Because look, when you start thinking big and taking bold action, you are going to face setbacks. It's inevitable. So how does a big thinker handle what looks like failure? Here's the crucial difference. A big thinker refuses to see failure as a final verdict. For them, a setback isn't the end of the story. It's just a plot twist. It's data. It's feedback. They study the wreckage, not to feel bad about it, but to find the lesson that will make the next attempt stronger, smarter, and better. And this really is the ultimate truth of the big thinking mindset. Look, being knocked down is a temporary condition, but feeling defeated, that's a choice. You can always, always choose to get back up, learn, regroup, and go again. And that brings us to the final powerful idea from this incredible book. In the end, what you accomplish in this life isn't really limited by your background, your money, or your past mistakes. It's limited by one thing and one thing only, the size of your thinking. So the only question left for you to answer is, how big will you let yourself think?